SecTor's here today with David Shrier, keynote speaker for the 2017 conference and also CEO of Distilled Analytics, an MIT spit-out company. In that company, he's going to be putting together some ideas that he's been perfecting with colleagues over the last few years. David, tell us about those.
Great. Thank you for having me here today, and it's a real privilege to be here. So my colleagues at MIT and I have been developing something called the Trust Data Framework, which is a new paradigm for how to secure data and how to work with identity. More of it you can find at trust.mit.edu. I personally am then applying some of those ideas in our spin-out company, Distilled Analytics, which among other things helps financial institutions with AML KYC, anti-money laundering, and know your client.
And I understand that some of this is based on blockchain technology. Could you talk about how that plays into securely sharing data?
Absolutely. So there are two major ways that we use blockchain with the Trust Data Framework. So one of those is to have a very resilient and immutable audit trail. When someone accesses your personal information, you will know who, you will know when, and they will not be able to alter it. And so that's critically important, that we give people more control and knowledge around what's happening with their personal data. The other way we use blockchain is a little more complicated and a little more clever. Essentially what happens is data today is sitting there, let's say in a database, and it's whole and it's complete. And once you get access to the database, you can pull out a data element and you can look at it. It might be in plain text. And you typically need data in plain text in order to be able to look at it, right? The Trust Data Framework posits a system where we encrypt all the data, we put it in lots of little pieces on a blockchain, and then we make it possible to do useful things with that data while it is still encrypted.
It sounds a lot like homomorphic encryption.
My colleagues who are much more expert than I am in crypto have said to me it is near homomorphic encryption, or is homomorphic-like encryption. They are not making the full claim that it is homomorphic encryption. What they're saying to me is it is secure multi-party computation with secret sharing. And the best I've been able to squeeze out of them is homomorphic-like.
Got it. Okay. And so could you talk about the end game for this? You've got the concept down, you've been developing the technology. What will it actually look like when it's out there and being used in anger?
So the Trust Data Framework is being developed together with people who are actually trying to use it. It's open source, so anyone can download it and play with it as we develop it and publish it. And our goal is to create a new standard. So the end game for us would be that we have a new standard of how sensitive data is managed.
Is that something that is it going to be implementation specific? Does it has to be, say, an Ethereum-based blockchain or a Bitcoin-based blockchain, or will it be open?
No, it's agnostic as to which blockchain you use. We're building with Ethereum because it's easier to work with, but it's not restricted by any means to any one. And in fact, we frequently have dialogue with the guys at Ripple, for example, who have a completely different blockchain.
Got it. Okay. And so what does this mean in terms of identity management, which has always been a really tough nut for the industry to crack?
We posit, using some other techniques known as social physics, that there are better ways of identifying you as you that don't rely on the provenance of government-issued documents, although governments could then accept these new models of identification. And furthermore, we say that that model of identity should be put into the control of the user, where you have your core identity that's intrinsic and irrevocable, and then you can decide to create personae that you use in different use cases. Like, for example, you create a shopping persona, or a one-time use persona, or a health persona, or a work persona, and those personae can interface with the outside world, and we link the two with, let's say, clever math and clever software.
Right, okay. So talk timelines. I mean, when is this going to happen, and how are you actually laying the foundations for this to be used as a practical solution?
Yeah, so it is going to be soon. So some of the elements of the Trust Data Framework are actually in prototype now, and we'll be able to play with them into 2018. The full commercial rollout is over time, 5 to 7 years out. but little pieces will be released every year. And part of how we're getting it out there is that we have industry working very closely with us at every step of the way, so that we're developing a system that's actually useful in real-world problems, whether they're in financial services or health or government services or some other application. And so we're really trying hard to make sure that this gets into deployment quickly and people can tell us what the problems are, and then we can work to solve them.
Excellent. Well, the very best of luck with it. And David, thanks so much for coming along to SecTor this year.
Great. Thank you for the time.